Hey, what's up? Welcome to Degen Ed. That's degenerative education, meaning none of this is financial advice. Just me having fun looking at charts, like the chart behind me, which is of Rocket Lab, ticker symbol RKLB. And so I am recording this on Wednesday, May 1st, after the market has closed, with Rocket Lab closing at a price of $3.85, being up 2.39% on the day and continuing up 5 cents in the after hours, closing the after hours session at $3.90. And so, I wanted to go over Rocket Labs for a couple reasons. One being that earnings are coming up on May 6th, so that is Monday after the market closes, I believe 5 p.m. Eastern. Unfortunately, I'm working that day, so I won't be able to stream it, but I will be streaming Sunday evening for Ticker Request Live at 9 p.m. Eastern. So if you do want to join for that, I'd be happy to give you an update on my thoughts on Rocket Lab. But yeah, and the other reason why I did want to go over the stock is because it was requested on Twitter, and I actually wanted to go over a tweet exchange and really just kind of explore some of the psychology behind what we're seeing in the chart with earnings coming up, because I do think it is telling the direction that it could be going in. But, of course, I could be wrong about my thoughts. But I do also want to point out that this video follows up on one that came out on, I believe, the 23rd, when I said that I thought the bottom was in. And so we will see if, this analysis supports that or not. But yeah, I'm first going to switch over to Twitter so we can have a look at this exchange. So this was following up on a Rocket Lab post, and Sebo, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but he actually requested that I follow up on Rocket Lab to see what my thoughts are on this pattern that was pointed out. And so this guy, Robert, who has no position, I also have no position. He is saying that it's under heavy selling pressure with 18% shorts. And this is the one thing that really stands out to me, that looks like the market is anticipating a miss or and bad outlook slash guidance. And so from my perspective, if the market is anticipating something, if everybody's expecting it to go one way, I think that we might be surprised. And so this makes me think that the market is expecting the stock price to go down. And he also points out that he sees a huge head and shoulders pattern in the chart, and that the price is exactly on the right neckline. And so, whether it's the FOMC, which happened today, or the earnings report, may tank the stock hard. And so Sebo follows up with, where do you see a head and shoulders pattern? And Robert points out what he sees, and I will go over, whether or not I think this is legitimate. Thing that stands out to me, which Sebo also points out, is that between the left shoulder and the head, as well as the head and the right shoulder, we see a lot of consolidation here. So, it's like the head and the shoulders are not really connected that well. You see this pretty big gap between them. And also, I do think that the neckline is a little bit wonky. I believe that Robert is basing it on this line here, and you actually don't see basically the armpit between the head and the right shoulder connecting with that line. You don't really see it over here either. So I do think that this is, not really the best view of the chart. But yeah, perhaps this is bearish, perhaps the stock price is going down. And so I will follow up with what Sebo says here, that it doesn't really seem like a typical head and shoulders pattern. You do have this, nice pullback here and a bounce, head, pullback, bounce, and then a break of that neckline. So that is, a pretty clear pattern. And notice, this line is really based on, going from the left armpit and then connecting that over to the right side of the right shoulder. So this side over here, the left side of that left shoulder, doesn't really matter. That can go lower, as long as it goes lower than that neckline. You really just want to base it on pivot points from this armpit over here, and then really you want to connect it to this armpit. So this line could be diagonal a little bit. It could be a little bit upsloping, but then connect that over here. And then you could get a measurement from the top of the head down to the neckline to get an idea of where that would be. And that is where the bottom is, approximately looking at this chart here. And then Robert also follows up with possible. Didn't mean to scare you, just observing. And so let's explore his observation in the chart. And yeah, so this is a chart that I have. These are the lines that I had up in last week's video when I did suggest that I thought the bottom was in here at $3.47, having a double bottom with $3.48, which was the low hit over here on December 28th of 2022. So this is a pretty massive head and shoulders pattern if it is a head and shoulders pattern. And so here we see the left shoulder, head, and the right shoulder. But yeah, I just see that this is way too much consolidation, too much going on here. Again, over here, these shoulders are not connected to the head. So I don't feel like that pattern is valid. And so if I do draw a line from basically the low over here, so on April 6th, the low was $3.62, fraction of a penny off. But then from there, I need to be connecting it to this other armpit over here, that being at a low of $4. So right about there. And so, yeah, looking at this line, I'm just going to make it a little bit thicker so we can see it better. I don't really, this does not compel me to think that this is a head and shoulders pattern. Really, if I do extend this line over to here, yeah, okay, so we've got all of these points connecting with that, or approximately connecting with that line. Left shoulder, big, massive armpit here. Not sure what's going on with this. Head and shoulders, head, massive armpit, and another shoulder, but then there's like this big kink in the pattern here. And I believe this is actually when I first started to cover Rocket Lab. I was pretty intrigued by this drop, and I thought that it was earnings, but it wasn't. It's also possible, though, that I got intrigued by Rocket Lab back here. I'm not really sure. I do know it was a gap down when I started to follow it more and make videos on it. But anyways, I don't really see that this is a right shoulder. So I'm not too convinced. And yeah, and so looking at the chart, if I had an untrained eye, and I would argue that I do have an untrained eye, I am still learning. That's what this channel is all about, learning to chart better. This serving as a trading journal, taking requests, learning as I go, making mistakes, as well as making some successful calls, which I have had some recently. Check out SoFi video that hit it right on the head with earnings, but may not with Rocket Lab. But I do have to say that I have been fairly bearish overall lately. I just feel like with the S&P topping, my sentiment has been that the top is in. But looking at a chart like Rocket Lab, this is not the market. This is a stock that's within the market, and it does look to me like there is a bottoming signal here, and this head and shoulders pattern looks like it would trick the untrained eye. I have been getting better at my head and shoulders analysis, my identification of the patterns, and these armpits seem to invalidate it to me. This ugly right shoulder makes me think it's not really that compelling of an argument. And there's actually one thing that stands out to me as bullish with the chart, which I have gone over with other tickers, and so maybe you will be able to pick it out. But before I draw this line, I did want to point out that following these big moves down, the low that we did see over here, from that point, we have been getting lower lows in the stock price. But what have we been seeing in the RSI? And so if I do draw a line from, one of these drops here in the RSI, so on September 20th, the RSI was 2390. On the 26th, it was 2309. So that's the lowest point. So I'm just going to draw it there. It's actually approximate. And then if I do connect that to the recent low that we saw when we hit $3.47, what do we see with that line? I'm just going to make it a little thicker so it's easier to see. We see that we have higher lows. And so while we have lower lows in the stock price and higher lows in the RSI, that is bullish divergence that does suggest up moves. And so I do think price could be going higher. However, if I do zoom in on the chart, we have in fact seen price going higher, and it looks like it attempted to get to $4 a share today, hitting a high of $3.98, getting rejected from that level. And it is quite possible that the low over here from February 1st, that being at a price of $3.89, it's quite possible that is acting as resistance with the price trying to get above that level and not being able to. If I throw up the volume profile, we can see that we are bumping into a volume shelf, and it might be getting pretty tough to get up to these levels, getting up to $4.26 or getting up to this white trend line that I just drew, highlighting that neckline. And so, I think that it's going to be pretty important what the stock price does over the next couple of days and into Monday of next week before the earnings call. If it does look like it is getting rejected from $4 a share and this volume shelf, I think it's quite possible that this could be pulling back to $3.47, if not breaking lower. And so I would caution about that, but it's also quite possible that if it is consolidating here, that could be bullish consolidation after this up move, and it could be breaking higher, just needing a kick from earnings to boost that share price up. And then one other thing that I can do that might be, in support of a bull case argument if the price is to continue going up. If I draw a Fibonacci retracement here from the high, that's at a price of $6.14 hit on December 28th, and I pull that down to the low of $3.47. Got that lined up right on the penny there. I do have these three levels, the 236, the 382, and the 50% level, because I think they're going to be pretty important. And so right now we are below the 236, which is at a price of $4.10. If we're able to get a close above $4.10 before earnings, that could be suggesting some strength. However, there may not be confirmation of a close above that level, which would be not only one close above that level, but a second close above that level, closing above that prior day or the day's high that closed above the $4.10 level initially. And so, I doubt that we'll see that before earnings, but that is a level to be paying attention to. And if the price does launch up following earnings, I could see it getting up to the 382 at $4.49 or the 50% level at $4.80.5, maybe even getting up to $5 a share. And if it does go up to these levels, I would expect a pullback perhaps over the next couple of weeks, and it could potentially be finding support at these levels, making its way moving up higher. And I do just want to throw up the volume profile here one last time, because it does look like we do have a little bit of a volume lip here right around the 382. Maybe the stock price would be bumping its head around there. But, before I close this video, I do want to take a step back just in case, I am wrong and this is in fact a head and shoulders pattern. We can take a measurement from the top of the head to the neckline to get an idea of where price might be going. And I have not done this yet, so we will have to see. But this is a down move of $4.23. And so if we are to take that measurement from the neckline here, that would effectively mean that the price could be going down to about 4 or 5 cents, right around $0 a share. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that this is a head and shoulders pattern, but I do think that someone who is not too familiar with the make and break signals of a pattern might neglect this consolidation between the shoulders and the head and this ugly shoulder over here. And I do think that if the market is pricing in the price going down, I think we could be surprised and that the price would be going up, potentially getting to $4.49. That level compels me because it does coincide with the supposed neckline. But we could also be seeing it go up to $5 a share, or maybe retesting these highs here at $6.14, because not only can earnings cause a stock to be volatile, whether that's to the upside or the downside. This is a rocket company, and I think that they've been doing pretty great. So I am on the side of thinking that it is going to launch, but I could, of course, be wrong. But, those are just my thoughts. If you found them helpful, make sure you like the video, share your thoughts in the comments down below, and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thanks a lot for watching, and thanks for the request.